And we're back. Hello, everybody. Doing another live. These lives have been going pretty well. Not just people visiting, but we're actually doing some technical testing, and so it's helpful for us. The only way that you can really test it is by actually doing it. It's kind of like parenting. You can read all you want, you can study videos, but until you're actually a parent, you don't get to actually test what you're doing. And so for us, the technology is kind of the same way as we try to do new things. See, putting these pretty graphics on the screen. We also have, if you guys want to support us through daduniversity.com/support. You can become a member. That's the best way to support us. But then we also take donations, and that allows us to do things like this, the lives. There's a microphone right here. There's a camera right here. I have an assistant. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, the time. So let's get to some questions. If you have some questions, throw them in the chat. Let me know where you're joining us from, too. Always enjoy hearing where people are from. Zach on X. Are there any significant differences when raising a daughter versus a son? I think that depends on the age. I think when they are newborns, the only difference that I know of is that for a girl, you are making sure that you're wiping, when they go to the bathroom, you're wiping from the front to the back. That's the only difference that the way that I do it. Now, culturally, your own beliefs, family, etc., certainly might raise a son different than a daughter. I chose, and my wife chose, to try to not necessarily raise them differently. Now, of course, as they get older, there are differences with boys and girls from just in general of sometimes the physicality of, but a lot of it also has to do with how we treat them. And so we tried to not treat them differently. But so I'd be curious if you can follow up with that of the actual age that you are talking about, because I have a son who's 14. I have a daughter who is 12. And certainly there are differences based on their personalities and their preferences of what they like and don't like. But as far as rules and disciplines and things like that, we kind of, quote, raise them the same. I will say one difference, more than boy than girl, is the birth order, and the years that they're apart actually probably has more impact. Because, I'll give you an example, we're teaching my son to use a knife when he was, whatever age, a toddler. We're teaching him to use a knife. Well, my daughter is there watching, and she's like, I want to use a knife. And so something that we may have taught him later, because he's older, he's 2 years older, my daughter then gets to sort of experience it earlier than he does. So that can actually have an effect on how you raise your child. So hopefully that helps. Bill, my 3-year-old keeps saying he wants something. Then when he gets it, he says he doesn't want it. Back and forth, especially when it comes to being tucked in at bedtime. Yeah, I think that's a common thing. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't think there's any issue with that. I think, when a child is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, continues, when they're young, they're always, they're constantly kind of learning and experiencing what their boundaries are, what they can and can't do. And I think that sometimes falls within that. So, sometimes they just want to see if they can get away with something. That might be. Other times they're just wanting to find out what, is this something that can be done? Can it not be done? So I don't know if there's any specific problem there. You're not necessarily even asking a question, but I don't see really a problem with that. I think that's really a common thing that, we as adults do the same thing. So we have an ongoing joke in our family because of some things where one of my children had commonly done that, where they wanted something and then didn't want something and then wanted something. And I think that that's just confusion of not really knowing what it is that you want. And we adults suffer from that too. Yeah, so my daughter, Zachanix, so my daughter's 8 months. I'm more nervous about the puberty years, and I would hate to. Well, you have 12, a good 10 to 14 years. I wouldn't worry about it now. And certainly there are differences when it then comes to puberty and the ages and how to handle that. I mean, there's physical differences between men and or boys and girls. So there are differences when it comes to that. Yeah, no, good questions. Anybody else has questions? Throw them in the chat. Let me know where you're joining us from. We haven't done too many early. This is a little bit earlier Pacific time. We're here in San Diego, so it's 11 a.m. Bill asks, if you said in a previous video that you said to lower your expectations, how do I know at 3 if I'm expecting too much? I don't want to hold him back by not expecting enough. That is a great question. I think, how do you know? Well, the difficulty there is that, everybody has different expectations. So, what I will say is, let's say I'll give myself as an example. When I was growing up, my family had fairly high expectations. It was sort of like unwritten. It wasn't like a tremendous amount of like external pressure. In other words, they didn't necessarily say a bunch of things, but, I had siblings that, got great grades and were involved in athletics and successful. And, I had, so like, there was sort of just, it was just, you're going to go to college. And like, there was all these expectations that weren't like, outwardly didn't seem like they were pressured or expectations. But, after looking at it, it's like, yeah, those are all expectations. Now, another family may have not had that. So what is right and what's wrong? Well, that's for you to determine. So that is a good question of like, how do you determine, what expectations. What I will say about that is, because you're going down the line of encouragement. You said not expecting enough. I think you have to be careful by almost expecting anything. When you are tied to the outcome, like your emotions are tied to the outcome or anything, you kind of are getting into the territory of conditional love and the idea that your child has to do something. Now, I'm not saying that if your child fails, you won't treat that properly, but having expectations is fine, but you have to be careful because, you can expect your child to get good grades, but if they don't, what happens? And that's part of the parenting process. And a lot of the things that we talk about is, what do you do with that? That your child doesn't get good grades? Do you put get your child in trouble? Do you try to help them and support them? Do you, and there's different ways of handling that. So I think you got to be careful having expectations, and maybe, you might mean it as like supporting your child and trying, allowing them to try different things is maybe a better way of phrasing that. Because I think when you start having expectations, and especially just expecting that there's supposed to be an outcome that you want, you're setting yourself up and your child up for failure. And, motivation and that you'll see is intrinsic. It comes from within. And so you're trying to teach your child that they feel good about what they're doing. It has nothing to do with the fact that dad will feel good. So maybe you had an expectation that they're going to get a good grade. That's a really bad, in my opinion, that's a really bad expectation to have. Instead, you teach your child to say, hey, is this something that's important to you? Well, if it is, how are you going to get there? Why is it important to you? Because here's where it becomes very difficult as your children get older, is when your children have different priorities and different things that they like and different things that they feel is important and the things that they put effort towards when it's different than what it is that you care about. And that is a hard thing to deal with for many people. You have to really take a look at yourself and say, like, is my child doing this for me? Or am I setting my child up for their own success? And that success can be whatever it is. If your child is a musician or an artist, they're not going to make a lot. Let's say they're not going to make a lot of money, but they're really happy doing that. What's more important? That's not for you to decide. And I think that's an important thing in parenting, is allowing our children to do that. So I just went on a huge tangent, but I feel like that was important. Good questions coming in. Rich Rowland, good to see you from Orange County. Number one XRP. I don't know if there's a question in here. I think it was just maybe support. Brandon just supporting the other comment. So Bill, okay, thank you for the clarification. I just went on a tangent for a while. I meant by expectations is trying to figure out the difference between him not being able to understand what we want him to do, clean up toys, and when he just doesn't want to do it. Yeah, that's a great question too, and I think that comes with age. I would make the assumption that when a child is a toddler, and we're talking 2-3 years old, and even as they get into 4, 5, 6, you are going to repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So as an example of cleaning up toys, we've done so many different techniques and things to try to get our children to clean up certain aspects. They're 12 and 14, and guess what? They forget to clean up. Now, cleanliness is maybe more important to one child than the other. It's more important to one parent than the other. It's more important than one family to the other. So, you're instilling what you feel is best into your child. And so, a child could be totally fine and accepting of their room being a complete mess, but they're doing it really for you because they want you to be happy. This becomes a pretty challenging and complicated thing. So yeah, that's a great question. I'll have to think about that one. So Rich asks, our baby girl's 5 months. I work 2 jobs. My wife stays at home. I'm worried my baby won't know who I am. What can I do to bond with her? I only have 1 hour a day at night. So a couple things. And this can be hard truth. I can take this a couple different ways. Depending on its importance, you obviously can make that hour really count. That's one way. The other is you change your schedule. That's another option. I mean, think about the options. You change your schedule and maybe you work a little bit later that the baby is asleep, or you change the shift or something so that you get some more time. That's another option. Or, you're able to make that 1 hour really count. And if you're able to do that, and depending on, it's at night, reading with the child, being there for bath time, you said 5 months. So yeah. So bath time, even just changing, when you're changing the child and laughing and talking and playing, that's all bonding time. Definitely affection. Affection is a big one. So when you're with your child, it's hugs, it's kisses, it's sitting together, it's playing, it's touch, it's all of that. Massage, there's just all it is really making that presence. And so as far as bonding, that presence is what's going to bond with the child. It really doesn't matter what it is that you are doing, as long as it is sort of interactive and together. I wouldn't watch TV, playing on a computer, playing video games or something like that, even as the child gets older. That's not going to be too much of a bond. When they're that age, it's doing the activity together. So something like, coloring together could be, doing a puzzle together, reading a book together. Bath is great. And like I said, doing massage or something like that, or just cuddling and holding each other, that can be nice too. So, I think it is hard if you have limited time, you just got to make that time count. She's not going to not know who you are or such. I will say that the quality of and remember this because this will help you, that the quality of the time is more important than the quantity of the time. So I think for many dads or even moms who work or have schedules and do things outside the house, often feel that guilt. But the truth is, kids benefit from the quality. That is the time together. And I tell it's not famous, but it's a story of an old, a guy my age grew up with parents across the country from each other, divorced parents. He would only spend like 2 weeks a year with his dad. And those 2 weeks, his dad took off work, 100% concentrated. And it wasn't all just fun. I mean, they had, as he got older, they had serious conversations. He obviously then kept in touch with them via phone and everything else. But as far as physical presence, like literally like 2 or 3 weeks a year. And as he became an adult, he ended up having an extreme, especially when he had then the means to go visit his dad, an extremely close relationship with his father. And so, of course, the mother took the brunt of most of that child rearing, with the rest of the year. But, dad got a chance to, interact with him, spend really good quality time together, have deep conversations, and just be present during that time. And so the end result was very positive. He's close to his mom because grew up with her, but he's also very close to his dad. And so I think that was something, and I don't know what the circumstances were for that situation, but making the effort as a parent is what matters, and being present. I think that's the most important thing. So what else you got? Let's go. It's Friday. If you want to support the channel, go to daduniversity.com/support. Click on that membership button, become a member. It really helps us. You pay what feels good. It's whatever amount that you want, but that gives you access to the courses, all of the videos, discussion groups, and it really helps our channel, as well as just subscribe. If you are not a subscriber to this channel, it's interesting. The amount of people that watch the videos versus how many people subscribe is very low. And so we need a higher percentage of that. So if you watch the videos or you've seen some of the videos, please subscribe to the channel. That really helps us too. And that's free. That doesn't cost anything for you. So, but you can go to daduniversity.com/support, become a member, or if you just like a one-time donation, that's important. That really helps us too. So, H. Cortez, how important are family meals and their frequency in your opinion? I think family meals are extremely important. And we made a tremendous amount of effort, myself and my wife personally, especially when our children were young or younger, to always have family meals together. Now, of course, schedules are difficult, but we actually modified our schedules in order to do it. So I was involved with a company at the time and recalled my wife and I having that discussion because I was occasionally, it could have been 2 times a week or something, would be staying late and missing dinner. So that became something that I realized and she helped me realize, was not a good thing. And we had established early that dinner or meals was important for us. So I actually modified my schedule to be there for dinner. And then if I needed to do more work, I would just go into my office afterwards, after dinner or whatever, and get more work done. So I do think it's a time because, especially no electronics, no phones, no games, no nothing. It's a time to just reflect on the day. It's a time to connect. And so, yeah, I think family meals. How often you can do that? Hey, if you can do it every day, do it every day. But I think it's based on your schedules and based on limitations. I don't think it's saying you only need to do 2 of them. I think the more, the better. But I can tell you is that as your children get older and if they are involved in activities, it becomes very difficult. Nowadays, as an example, my family, my children are 14 and 12. We for sure have dinner together on the weekends, at least 1, 2, sometimes each night. But during the week, that becomes difficult, and not because of my wife's work or mine, but because of our children's schedules. They have their activities and they do their different things, and sometimes that's hard to choose that because they're not available at different times. So yeah, I think make mealtime a priority, and especially when they're young, that I think it's just a great time to review the day, connect, and talk about things. And if you can't do dinner, do breakfast, or if you're able to have a lunch, have lunch. I think it's really important to do that. What else we got? Happy Friday, everybody. I'm sitting back and relaxing. I haven't relaxed this entire live. I'm going and going and going and going and going. And that's not even much caffeine in me right now. But yeah, so if you've got any questions, throw them in the chat. Certainly love to help out if I can. And then also, let me know where you're from. I like hearing where people are from. We always get people from all over the world. Oh, I love that. I like that graphic. I don't necessarily need my picture up there, but Luke likes to put my picture up there. I'm already on the screen, so I don't need to put my picture up there. So we're testing that stuff out. We kind of test things out to see how that works. And Orlando, Florida, good to see you. So I'm in North San Diego. We separate ourselves from the south of the South San Diego, just because we're better. We are no. It's funny. Somebody lives in quote San Diego. North San Diego seems to separate themselves. They just say, well, no, I'm from North San Diego, as if it's better, So that's what people say. So what else we got? It's a Friday. Some topics we've got coming up. I've got a couple videos coming out soon focused on new dads. A lot of the material coming up is definitely focused on new dads and soon-to-be dads. That seems to be a little bit higher in demand versus the 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, which, I've been doing a lot of content around that, and everybody seems to be, especially people commenting and stuff. It's like, hey, I'm a new dad. Hey, I was a new dad. I just became a dad 3 days ago, and I'm now looking at this, which is great. Bill, Northeast Ohio. That's cool. I wonder how cold it is there. I'm actually going camping this weekend with my daughter, but and it's supposed to be really cold. I don't know what the temperature is, but good thing we have cabins inside. So we often do camp outside, and when it's cold, that's interesting. I do bring a heater. See, perfect example, Mountain Man Jay, having my son tomorrow. Well, it's a good thing. Congratulations. Any advice for the labor and delivery? Yeah, in fact, I have a video on what to do in the delivery room. If you haven't established sort of some of the rules already for family and visitation and that kind of thing, that's something that may want to be done. And talking to mom about that and seeing what her thoughts are on it. But your biggest thing is, being an advocate for mom. Making sure that the doctors are nurses, everybody is paying attention to her. She's getting what she needs. Like, you're kind of the quarterback, you're calling the plays, and that's what you should. You're not, don't take a back seat to this. This is not, this is both of your experience together. And as a result, you need to step up and be there and be that person rather than just like, hey, she's going, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of men, it's like, hey, she's going in, she's doing this, and I'm just kind of hanging out and watching or whatever. No, I mean, it's active participation. It's making sure things are getting done. Making sure if there's anything she needs. That's kind of, talking to the family, taking pictures, whatever it is that, you're sort of the one running the show and making sure that everything is okay. So hopefully it all goes okay. I'm sure it will. Come back to us. Let us know how things are going. It's such an exciting time when you're about to have a child. And it's one of those things where you never think you're ready. and you never are. And then once you do it, it's just, it's a one-way door. You can't go back in time, and that shouldn't scare you. It's a very exciting, fun, good door. But it's one of those things that, your life is forever different. And for most, I don't think you can imagine your life without them after that point. And so, certainly there are times where I could imagined I would have had less stress and, less emotions and anger and everything else that I went through. But I don't think I would change it. I can't imagine changing it. And then now having the relationships that I do with my children, and like, as an example, going camping just with my daughter this weekend, like, my 12-year-old is willing to hang out with me. I go to the gym a couple times a week with my son who's 14. He's willing to hang out with me. Although I know that that's going to quickly change as his buddies go to the gym too. But the idea that they're willing to hang out with me is pretty cool. I think about it. My son just took a trip with my wife, and like they went to a concert, and so like it's pretty cool to be able to do that. And I think that, I take some credit. My wife absolutely gets credit that it took a lot of effort to get there. It is time, it is effort, and in the end, it pays off. It's worth it. It's worth it to invest that time into your children. Not only just because it's great, it feels great as a parent, but you are producing, healthy, happy, contributing members of society, and that feels really good when you start seeing your children, interacting and helping people and being nice and, doing these things that you've taught for so long and you've tried really, really hard, or even the littlest things like, I even can recall yesterday, my son, he had some food and he cleaned up his dishes. Like, that's a small thing, but it's awesome. The fact just cleaned up his dishes without being asked. And those kinds of things, as dumb as sometimes they seem, are actually pretty wonderful. That you're teaching your child the responsibility and they're doing these things. And so, and then you've got the complete other end of it, which is the drama and all the heartache that comes with having children. But that stuff is small compared to the good stuff. So it's worth it. Mountain Man J, you are welcome. I always wondered, this thing, is it a high five? I think it's a high five sign versus a peace sign. We often use it as a peace or a pray. Like, it's funny. Somebody, I heard a joke of that where somebody had said, hey, my like mother is in the hospital. I hope everything's going to be okay. And then you give them a high five. And we think that we're giving them a praise symbol. But Luke, I think that's actually a high five. So, but either way, it's great. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, I know it's appreciation. I use it too, Mountain Man. It's just funny. I think it officially, it's like the poop emoji was originally ice cream, wasn't it? I think the poop emoji was originally chocolate ice cream or something like that. It's like soft serve ice cream. It's a swirl. H. Cortez, how often do you feel like you're repeating the lessons from your dad or mom? I was really fortunate that I had what I consider excellent parents. And so for me, repeating those lessons, yeah, I mean, I sound like a broken record. I, say a lot of the same things, but it's interesting because, when you then get married, and if you have somebody that has a different upbringing, they came either from a different culture or different location or different family structure or different dynamics, then, putting those together, is interesting. Like we just had, an issue last night where we had a difference of opinion. It wasn't an argument, but it was just a difference of opinion on how something should be parented. And so, we didn't do that in front of the children, but we said, hey, okay, let's talk about that. Let's discuss this. And so we have to, go in a different room and talk about like, well, okay, well, you think that we should be done this way. I think it should be done this way. What should we do? And the end result is fine. We compromise. She wins. If you're married, you understood that joke. Donnie DiCaprio. What are some of the top three life lessons that I can teach my son? Ooh, that's putting me on the spot. Life lessons. Well, I like the golden rule. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself, and so that maybe life lessons. Wow, that's deep. That's deep on a Friday for me to have to think about that. I mean, what comes to mind, are two huge ones, which is, practice gratitude. My life changed when I learned about practicing gratitude and being grateful for things. So probably number one is practicing gratitude. Number two would be empathetic. That has changed the dynamic of my marriage, and it has changed the dynamic of the relationship I have with my children. And being empathetic is seeing things and seeing things from the other person's perspective and putting myself into their place when you're talking with somebody, or even sometimes arguing with somebody or having a discussion. And you don't have to agree with it, but being empathetic absolutely makes you more likable, makes you, you get along with people much better. And so, those are two. And then the other one I would say is listen more than you speak. And I'm still working on that one. But, I have a video camera in front of me, so that's why I'm speaking. But I would say, I'm curious what other people think. Throw those in the chat. If other people have any, that's a great question, Donnie. What are some other important life lessons? I might make a video out of that. I'll credit you. That's a good one. I have one where I talk about the regrets of life. I have a video that I've done talking about this woman did a study with people who were dying, old people, and what their biggest regrets were. But life lessons, I don't know. I have so many videos that I don't remember. I may have actually done that. I think, did I do a life, Luke, I did a life lessons for boys and a life lessons for girls. I think I might have. I know it's funny. It's like you think about actors who've been in so many movies, or even musicians who played so many different songs. You kind of forget stuff. And I will tell you, it's I've done hundreds of videos now, hundreds. And then you add, that's long form videos. You add short form, shorts, short, clips and things. I mean, it's got to be up there. And so, and granted, there's creators who have made way more than I have, but you forget what it takes, or you forget some of the names and what the subjects are. Rich, what are some healthy ways when it comes to fighting? Do you do it in front of your kids? So we have a tendency to try not to, but I will say that if we do, try to make up in front of the children as well. So, sometimes it's just inevitable. You're going to have an argument, and you have an argument. We try not to, sometimes we may have a discussion and a child walks into the room or into the house or whatever, and it's kind of unavoidable. We very rarely, and I can't think of it on both sides, where if one of us feels a certain way, that we would disagree in front of the child. It's really important to have a united front, even if at the time you're not really agreeing with it. And that was a situation yesterday where my wife felt one way and my child was there. And I said, you know what, maybe we should talk about this. And so we went into the other room and talked about it. So some healthy ways, there's a couple of things. It's very hard to not take things personal, but try not to take things personal. The other healthy way too is to take a breath, or count to 5 or count to 10 prior to responding to somebody. That space when you take the breath is huge. When you count to 5, just taking that pause can be really, really powerful. And then also thinking to yourself, do you want to be loved or do you want to be right? And my mother used to always say that. And I can tell you the other day, it happened to me where I was pretty upset about something. But I mentioned this in the other chat, I think yesterday. But I didn't want to be upset all night. Like, I literally just made the decision. I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to be upset. So I'd taken the kids out, came back 20, 30 minutes later, and just had a discussion and said, hey, what would have been a better way for this outcome? Like, what could we have done differently that would have been a better outcome to this discussion? And immediately my wife, disengaged. She's not being defensive. It's like, hey, we're working this out, and then everything was fine. So I think, arguments are inevitable. I think if you're not arguing, sometimes I would worry. It's like, you don't have a difference of opinions. Like, although my wife and I for many years didn't argue that much, but part of that was just us not being confrontational. It was like just kind of sucking it up and then harboring those feelings. Instead, it's like, you can have a mature discussion about it. So as far as healthy ways when it comes to fighting, just try not to take it personally. Try to be respectful in your comments. And just know, you don't have to be right all the time. You can be right in your mind, but trying to convince somebody who just doesn't think the same as you do, it's exhausting. I mean, I have this issue with people online. That's why I don't go on certain platforms. I started making content for certain platforms. I won't name them. And people just wanted to argue. And I can do it. And I just continue down my path of creating the content. But for someone to argue, their point, that's fine. But I'm not going to put a ton of effort in trying to convince them. You can't convince the unconvincible. Trying to convince somebody that I'm right when they believe totally different. Maybe they're right. They're right for them. So I have a saying too of just sometimes I just agree to disagree. And that's okay. So, Giovanni, I'll ask this one and then we'll probably finish up here. When it comes to discipline, do you prefer the timeout method or spankings? Which do you prefer? Both? Neither. Timeout has to be used in a very, very specific and constructive way. Timeout is typically better for you than it is for the child. It allows you to calm down and figure out, how do I want to handle this? Spanking, never. There's never a situation that warrants hitting a child. Ever. I'll go on record, and that is, research backed. Now, you guys can, there are people that say, well, I was spanked and everything turned out great for me. It's like, no, it wasn't the spanking that worked. It was the 400,000 hours that your parents spent with you that worked. Putting fear into a child, that's not a way that children learn. It's just a way that children avoid. And so, physical punishment never is a good solution. People do it because they don't know what else to do. I have an entire course on discipline and at least my views on discipline. And for some people, that may not work, but I can tell you what, it worked for me, meaning my parents raised me that way. We talked about things. We learned. My mother especially was kind of a coach in sort of teaching us about life. And so we've had that same way for our children. And my children, I'd like to think, are respectful and, good kids, if you will. And part of that is the way that we have raised them. And it is not by spanking, and it is not by grounding, and it is not by punishment in that sense. In our house, we really didn't have punishment, and we really didn't have reward. There's really not. It's learning experiences. And then people say, well, what if they just keep doing it? Well, you got to find out why. If your child continually does the same thing over and over and over again after you've talked about it, discussed the good and the bad, and they're still not learning, well, there's something going on. And so there's a reason why your child's not getting it. And so the core to discipline is teaching your child what is right and wrong and appropriate and not appropriate, and your child making those decisions. Because what happens when you are not there to, if you're a spanker, and your child is not there to, and you're not there to spank them, well, then your child makes those bad decisions because, hey, I'm not going to get spanked. Nobody can punish me. Instead, saying, you know what? That's probably not a good decision. I've kind of learned that wasn't a good decision. It's not a good decision for me, so I'm not going to make that decision. So my discipline is about that. And I have a course. You can, if you become a member, go to daduniversity.com/support. Become a member. You get access to the discipline course, work-life harmony, the relationship. You get access to all the courses. And you only need to pay whatever feels good to you, small amount. Get access to all of them. Also, if you want to do a donation, that's great too. But I'd say get a membership. Giovanni, you're welcome. Rich, want to do something nice for Valentine's Day, but we don't have a babysitter. Do you have any suggestions? Well, you to put the baby to bed early. That's one. Get her some coupons for stuff that you would do. Don't make it sexual. Do some coupons of things that you will do for her. Prior to that, actually, before I should have said that, is find out what her love language is and do that. So, go look up, if you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, understand what each of those are, find out what her love language is, and then focus in on that. So for example, my wife doesn't care about gifts, like a necklace or whatever. If I cleaned the kitchen or washed her car, that's 100 times better than me buying her a gift. She likes acts of service. So you have to know your wife's or girlfriend or spouse, whatever, partner's love language. So learn her love language and then do that. Gifts, if you don't have a babysitter, you can still, that's why I like something like a coupon book where, you give her a foot rub, you give her a complete, day alone doing whatever she wants to do, or, take her to, buy something under this amount if that's reasonable. Like you just have to be creative in doing things, but I think you have to know her love language, because if she's someone who doesn't care for gifts or flowers or something then that's not going to matter. So somebody suggesting that's not going to matter. But let's say she likes acts of service. Maybe she wants to hear words of affirmation, which is another one. So that would be you just writing a love letter to her, saying how much you appreciate her, how much, she's been an amazing mother and such. So they're all different. So just because one likes flowers or likes, having a picnic in the living room doesn't mean another one is going to. So. Giovanni, this is only the last one. So if you have 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl, what's the major difference between the 2 babies for you? My daughter melts my heart and my son makes me feel like, yeah, that's my boy. Yeah, I get that. I understand that. Although my daughter was very active, like as far as, we used to call her Dirt Girl because she would be wearing a dress and be playing in the mud. And then, we put her in martial arts, and when she's still in martial arts. And, so as far as melting heart, I think that's like a dad to daughter thing versus, the sons can be a little bit different. So Rich, you're welcome. Glad you're here. Hope you can join us on the next one. Again, guys, supporting the channel, we really, really appreciate it. I know I keep saying it, but it is very helpful. In fact, on the last live, we got some members as a result of that, which is great, because it perpetuates this. It allows us to do more videos, more lives, allows us to do that and supports the channel. So thank you, everybody. Happy Friday. I got to get going here, but happy Friday, and we will see you next time. Take care. When I found out we were going to have a baby, I was so excited.
I was also full of anxiety and fear because I knew nothing about children or being a father. So I began learning. I took parenting classes, did research, got certifications, and most importantly, experienced mistakes that I learned from. And while there was a lot of information and communities for moms, there wasn't many resources for dads. And so I decided to take action and began building Dad University. Dad University is a one-of-a-kind educational platform for dads to help you achieve your full potential as a father. We help you go from overwhelmed and confused to calm and confident father with our courses, our videos, live broadcasts, support forum, and more. When you become a member, you get unlimited access to everything. The pricing for our monthly membership is pay what feels good. Education, the community, the tools that you will get here are priceless. But we also understand that everyone values them differently. And as such, we give you the choice of what you want to pay. How much is peace of mind worth to you? Click on Become a Member and get started today.